Kia ora, good afternoon. So I'm just sitting here having a rest. I'm on a break. I've been stood down from causing trouble for devils and demons, but I'm watching Scary Mysteries. If I get cut off, you'll know I'm on to something. I'm also expecting a knock at the door, so if that happens, I'll have to run away. Just bear with me for a second. But yeah, so I'm on a rest now. I'm sitting here with a hot water bottle, just chilling. Had some rice cakes with cottage cheese, some Vegemite, and a coffee, and I'm just chillaxing. I'm on a break. Don't know how long for, but I want to make these shows. I want to do these podcasts. I want to go out and do them live on location. I've talked about this many times. The Mysteries Inside History, formerly the Eye in the Sky show, and connecting the dots. This would be maybe a connecting the dots because I can't see me ever being allowed to go to America to investigate this in person, unfortunately. While the Republicans are in office, I don't think I'm going to be invited to America anytime soon. So, but I want to do these shows. I want to get back out there and travel around with the film crew and make my shows like I was doing with my National Trust places and that, but, make it professional. Get myself a co-host, travel around, exploring all sorts of unsolved murders, unexplained mysteries, folklore, mythology, urban legends, that sort of thing. Mysteries inside history. Mystery inside history. So I'm watching Scary Mysteries, and they're talking about the Dardeen family. The Dardeen family massacre of 1987 in Ina, Illinois. And I've been listening, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and then something just piqued my interest. I'm listening to all the explanations as to what they think it could be. I was going through a whole pile of suggestions in my head. Oh, could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be blah, blah, blah? But, I just sat patiently and I just let it come through. And so I started doing some digging, pardon the pun, and some investigating. And what I uncovered is pretty interesting and quite scandalous, if I'm right. So Peter and Elaine, they had a wee boy, Keith, and she was 7 months pregnant with a wee baby girl. He worked for the REND Lake Water Conservation District near, they lived in Ina, I-N-A. And they were found, he didn't turn up for work one day. His boss called for a wellness check and they found the bodies of the wife, Elaine, the boy, Keith, and she'd given birth to the baby, all beaten to death, bound and beaten to death. And his body was found a little whiles away, and he'd been shot in the head, shot in the cheeks, and mutilated, genital mutilation, which is odd. And then people were saying, could it have been satanic rituals? That's the first thing I thought. Was it like some sort of ritual killing? Because a lot of times, because I know that people say they brought experts in. I love this so much. I love doing this. They brought experts in, occult experts, and the experts were like, well, it doesn't follow any signs of ritualistic killings. It doesn't, they didn't, because ritual killings, there's protocols that they follow and there's this and that and the other thing, which is true for the most part, if they're in cults. But if you want to get into a cult, sometimes, just like with when you want to get into gangs, and I know this because my husband is in the Latin Kings, And he's told me stories about some of the things that some of these gangs, for initiations, sometimes if you want to be a part of it, you have to kill someone. And like with the Illuminati, for example, the nearest and dearest, if you want to get a record contract or win an Oscar or anything like that, quite often you have to sacrifice the person you love the most. They make you sacrifice the person you love the most in order to get your riches and your fame and your fortune and all of that. So while it didn't have all the hallmarks of a ritual killing, it doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't an initiate sacrifice. However, I sat and I listened. And it's the fact that they got the newborn, that they killed the newborn baby and the child as well, and his genitals. And it's almost, what I was thinking was, it's like they wanted to make sure that he couldn't have any more children and that his children couldn't be examined. They did a drug and alcohol test on all of them. It was all negative. I mean, they were a staunch Christian family. But the thing that piqued my interest was the fact that Peter was exceptionally paranoid. He wouldn't open the door for anyone. They had put their trailer up for sale and they were wanting to move back to be with his mother. He was even prepared to give up his job and not have another job to go to and I quote, figure it out later. The mother said, why do you want to pack it all in and chuck in your job and come here and figure it all out later, sort of thing? And he said, because there's too much crime here. There's a lot of murders happening around the place and I don't feel safe. He wouldn't open the door for people. He was exceptionally paranoid. A girl knocked on the door to ask if she could use the phone and he wouldn't let her in. So he was exceptionally paranoid. So then that piqued my interest. And I'm really surprised, well, I mean, maybe I'm not surprised if it was the cops, but Franklin and Jefferson County. So the first thing I do is mines. I looked up mines, what mines were in the area. And in Ina, there's a lot of mines. And in around that area and in the whole of Illinois, there's a ton of mines. Everything from gold, coal, barium, copper, like these. I've put links in the description box. There are a ton of mines in Illinois, but especially around Ina. When I was looking at these mines, I can't remember if was it Rend Lake or Rand Lake. Rand Lake, I think it was, where he worked. He worked for the water treatment company there, the water conservation department. It was filled in and dealt with by the army. And the first thing I always do with these kind of things is look for mines and look for any sort of military involvement. And what I found with some of these mines in Ina is that some of them were closed because they collapsed and they were leaking. And so then I started looking up the lake itself, and what I discovered was very interesting. They have lead warnings. Test your water for lead. And when I looked into what that company was talking about in regards to the lead, they were specifically stressing about the dangers of lead to infants and newborn babies and small children. So now I'm wondering, was that family killed to cover up a lead poisoning conspiracy? Because the mines collapsed, they had to shut them down. Was lead seeping into the coal? Was lead seeping into the ground? Did he know something? The fact that they targeted his genitals, just in case he survived, make sure he can't have kids, because lead poisoning, when it passes through your bloodstream, you can have like deformed births and all of that. And I think that's the reason why he was prepared to quit his job, not having another job to go to, and why he was wanting to flee and too scared to open the door to people. Because I think he knew that the water was full of lead and was poisoning the community. And so they killed the family to shut them up and cover their tracks so that the kids couldn't be tested for, because maybe he was threatening to have the kids tested. And so they killed the kids because the coroner is not going to look for, if they did a toxicology report looking for drugs and alcohol, they obviously didn't do a full toxicology report. So I think they were killed to cover up some sort of lead poisoning conspiracy. Why they shut the mines down? There was some sort of toxic leakage. They've now turned a lot of that area into a conservation area, because one of the things I thought was, sometimes if they want to get you away from the land, they'll scare you off. So then I thought, well, if that's the case, why would they be wanting to get them near the land? After he did his training with the water treatment place, he bought a trailer there in the area where he did his training. And so I don't know whether the land is seeping toxic lead, but I know the water certainly is. Because even now to this day, they are still telling people, we don't test the water for lead, get it tested yourself. And hey, look, we're really worried about you giving this water to infants and babies, for their baby formula, and to toddlers and kids. And they killed their little boy Keith, and they even killed the newborn baby. She gave birth, she was 7 months pregnant, and she had a stress birth. And they even killed the newborn baby. They shot him in the cheeks and the back of the head. And usually in killings like that, when they damage your cheeks, it's so that you can't test DNA and stuff. You can't test, because the cells in your cheeks, you have a lot of cells in the cheeks, the inside of your mouth and your tongue. And it's like, whatever it was in him, he passed on to his kids, and his wife was carrying it in that child. And they needed to get rid of the evidence. There was no way that a coroner was ever going to look for things like lead poisoning in something that looked like a murder. They suggested it was a serial killer. A very, 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 very small percentage of serial killers will kill unborn babies and toddlers as well. And if they do, it's usually because they can identify them. If there's 1,000 serial killer murders, it would be 0.5% of them would kill the babies and children in the house as well. And it's usually because they're known to them. And the fact as well that they placed the babies in bed with the mother and then covered the bodies. When killers cover the bodies, it's to hide their guilt, because they have shame in what they've done, because they're known to the people, so they cover their faces. If you don't care about who you've killed, you don't cover their faces. So I really think that they were killed by the state, to cover up a lead poisoning conspiracy in the water. And apparently, from what Peter was telling his mother, a lot of people were getting killed. And he was terrified. And it's like he knew that his life was in danger. And so his plan was just pack up and get the hell out. They put their trailer on the market, and he was fully prepared to chuck in his job and not even having another job to go to. And he said to his mother, I'll figure it out once I get there. But they killed him before they had the chance to leave, because they couldn't risk him talking, I'm telling you now. If they could exhume those bodies and do a lead poisoning test, it would be really interesting. Apparently, it causes sediment in the pipes, and there's lead in the sediment, and, the water pipes going to people's houses. So I've put links in the description box below. I think I still need to do one for the video that I'm watching, but I'm telling you now, when you look at my evidence, there's barium as well. Barium's poisonous, but the lake itself specifically talks about lead and toxic water, and don't drink the water. And they make a huge point of mentioning about not giving water to small children and babies and toddlers. Don't put the water in baby formula, that sort of thing. And a lot of these mines shut down in, like, I think one of them was 1991, this murder was 97, and 2002, because they were collapsing because of water leakage. So they say they were unstable because, like, sediment was seeping through and that, so it would have been poisoning the miners. So I've put the links in the description box below, but I'm just throwing my hat in the ring. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I think. I think he was killed by his company or the military, the army, because the army were definitely involved. It mentions the army in my investigation with that lake. The army was involved with that lake. So, but whoever killed them knew them and felt guilty about it because they covered up the bodies. And when killers do that, it's to hide their guilt, to mask their guilt. They killed an unborn baby that had been delivered because of the stress. It was a stress birth. So that's what I think anyway. And when I get to Switzerland and I'm out there doing my Talent's Got the Idol Factor shows, you can best believe I'll be doing these kind of shows as well, my Mysteries Inside History shows, or Mystery Inside History shows. And I can't wait. I'll get a TV crew, film crew, and we'll put it on the radio one week and then do the recorded show the next, so that you can hear it first and then see it. So yeah, I can't wait. So anyway, that's just me putting my 2 cents in. Links in the description box. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō. Mwah.